Welcome back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. This is the final episode of breaking away from the trauma bonds, toxic relationships, and things of that nature. Over the last three episodes, I've talked about what trauma bond was, how to really process, trauma bonds, and getting to a point of letting go and healing. And it's so important for you to understand that you are worth the work. And that's what we're going to talk about today as I close out this important episode is identifying how to make you a priority and understanding that you are worth every ounce of work that you have to put into healing yourself from relationships, healing yourself from experiences, healing yourself from family, friends, intimate partnerships, and things of that nature. But more importantly, healing yourself from you. Well, Marcia, what do you mean healing me from me? Well, let's take a look. We're going to go backwards a little bit and think about how you learned how to be you and how that trauma bond became a part of the pattern that was instilled in you from early on in life. So we have to take it back to the source, take it back to the place of birth, the two people coming together, your parents, to create you, and whatever their links to trauma was that connected to you. Oftentimes, you have that parental connection for the trauma bond because they're unhealed in the process. So you put that on like a cloak. I remember when my mother passed away, one of my sisters was very distraught. We all were, but she was very distraught. And one of the things she kept saying was, I wanted mama to experience this in life. I wanted her to experience that. And I said to her, it kind of wasn't your decision. She kind of had to make a decision for herself to want those experiences. And she carried that pain with her through grief for a very long time. Oftentimes, when our parents haven't taken time to heal, we carry the pain of wanting to see them happy, wanting to see them experience other life situations that's better than what they've had and things of that nature. And then we forget our own value. So I'm taking this time to turn the tables back to you to remind you that you're worth the fight, you're worth the energy that you're going to put in, you're worth the boundaries that you're going to set, you're worth every ounce of beautiful situations that you desire to experience. Here's what I want you to know today. Where over the years you've been told that you weren't lovable, you are. Over the years you were told that you were broken, you're not. Over the years you were told that you were too much, never that. You're all that you need to be, lovable, unbroken, experienced hurt, disappointment, abandonment, and rejection. But those are things that were caused by somebody else's unhealed situations. Even in relationship, oftentimes in relationship, people enter into relationship because they have a need of belonging. They have that dire need of companionship. They have that need to really embrace life, and they have a bigger fear of being alone and being unsupported. And in those spaces, people go into relationships, and they go into relationships with toxic individuals that are not healed, and they're not healed because they a lot of times don't even realize that they do need healing from all of their past stuff, all of their parents' past stuff, their grandparents' past stuff, all that kind of stuff. But for you, you have to make yourself a priority in your healing. You can't heal for your children. You can't heal because you desire a healthy relationship or an intimate relationship and you want to prove it. You have to heal with you as a priority. You have to heal from the scars of being told negative things about yourself that you believed at times. You have to heal yourself from the painful memories of not feeling like you were enough. You have to heal from the times when you weren't chosen. Those are tough spaces to heal from. But when you show up and you begin to choose yourself, you make yourself a priority, you stop being a hero, then you will find that part of where you are is the piece of who you are. You're reframing your identity, you're reframing where you fit in your own life. As mothers, that can be really challenging to do because mothers have that umbilical connection with their children. And oftentimes they desperately don't want their children to go through what they've gone through. So they will overextend themselves. They will put themselves in the middle of it because they don't want their child or their child's children to go through anything. But when do you become the priority in your own life? I see a lot of grandparents who are really wrapped up in the grandchildren. And trust me, I'm a grandparent. I like to be very involved. But I've also had to learn that I'm a grandparent, not the parent. It's not my first priority or responsibility to take care of my grandkids. Do I want to make sure that they go in life and not experience lack and things of that nature? Absolutely. But it can't come at the cost of my own peace. It can't come at the cost of my own livelihood. Oftentimes, as parents, we want our children to not hurt. I get it. Especially from a lens of a single parent. And I'm going to stop here for a moment because I know that there has been people talking a lot about single parents, really demeaning single parents and saying negative stuff. Let me tell you something. If you talk to the average household right now, one of the parents is emerging as a single parent because somebody may be overindulged in working and always gone, and then you have that other parent that's doing everything for them, showing up for all the activities, whole 9 yards. Or it's a situation where one parent, they go to work and they figure that's all they need to do. The other parent goes to work, they take care of the kids, they cook, they clean, they do all this kind of stuff. You're a single parent. You just got a body in the house. That's what the real reality is. So I digress and I go back because I was a single parent. I know what that was like. I know those connections. I know how important it was for me as a single mom to make sure my children didn't feel disappointed or rejected or abandoned. But oftentimes I would lose my identity in that because I wanted so badly to be for them, where sometimes my mom couldn't be for me. Emotionally, I wanted to be available. I wanted my presence known. My mother had to work 2, sometimes 3 jobs to make it, right? But I carried a burden of not wanting to be like that for so long that I started replicating some of those same ideologies, even into my own children's lives. And as my grandkids are getting older, I'm having to learn, hey, you do realize that you're not a single parent. You do realize that this isn't where you're supposed to be. And I'm sharing all that with you all because my hope is that you can dig deep within yourself and say, it's okay to put the work on me. It's okay for me to heal. It's okay for me to begin seeing me as an individual and seeing me as a person with a purpose and a goal and mission for their life. Now, if your only mission for your life is to be the world's greatest grandparent and never have an opportunity to be present for yourself, so be it. Who am I to knock that? That's your purpose. That's your mission. That's your goal. But for those that want to develop their own identity, want to understand who they are and no longer are connected to toxic, unbalanced relationship, you want to be able to set things up and give yourself that permission to say, I'm desiring to heal. I'm allowed to heal. I'm allowed to see me through a lens of healing and own that for yourself. What does healing look like? Well, first you have to confront the things that's been holding you back. You have to identify, what are my unhealed points? I know for me, for a really, really long time, I had an unhealed and unhealthy relationship with being in a relationship. And why do I say that? I had an unhealthy idea about relationship because being raised in the 60s and the 70s, you were told that women really didn't have an identity without having a husband. And I held on to that. I held on to the ideology of Christianity and the masculine role versus the feminine role and the hierarchy and all that kind of stuff. So I forced myself to be in two very bad marriages for the sake of saying I was married or I had a man. But what I had to learn for me is that didn't work for me. That, because of their unhealed background attached to my unhealed experiences, it led to chaos. May not have been chaotic like everyday fighting and things of that nature, but I was carrying the wounds of broken relationships, excuse me, trying to make a relationship happen that wasn't supposed to happen. I was never supposed to be married to those two individuals. And in this point in my life, I'm taking my time even on the desire of being single or being married, because in my healed state now, I don't desire to be the healer in somebody else's life. So for me, that means that I am worth someone going through their own healing. I'm worth someone not looking for a hero or shero. I am worth someone loving themselves to the core, that they have boundaries and they have expectations and they have standards like I do. And then we come together and gel in the midst. Oftentimes, people are so afraid of being alone that they will accept anything in a relationship. They're so afraid of belonging and feeling connected that they'll take on any energy. And that energy can be very tiring. That energy can be depleting mentally, physically, and financially. I know when I made the decision last year to start working on the journey to go through weight loss surgery, because I had gone through so many different situations of losing weight, picking up weight, losing weight, picking up weight. The person that I dated for 5 years, that was still in my life as a friend, said to me, if you lose too much weight, I ain't gonna be attracted to you. And I said, good, because I'm no longer at that state of attraction. You're my friend, but not an intimate partner for me. My decision to get healthy, to stave off things like high blood pressure and diabetes that runs genetically through my body and my family, or their bodies and my family, I made the choice for me. If I had been at that state of mind of male pleasing, of having to have a man or needing a man's approval, I would have stopped my own journey. Oftentimes, you have to sit back and ask yourself, why? Why do I desire this? Why do I desire this type of person, this type of relationship, this type of situation? Why do I allow this type of behavior, this type of standard? Because here's the thing that I know about life is you get to teach people how to treat you through observation and through firsthand experience. Some people will sit back and observe you being mean and cruel to yourself, and they feel like that gives them a key to being mean and cruel to you. And because you've been mean and cruel to yourself for so long, you find their behavior acceptable until you are at the brink of explosion. Well, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to be in a space where you are allowing yourself to reach a point of explosiveness? I know for Marcia, Explosiveness is never good because Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. I don't go high, I go to hell. So I know where my explosiveness is going to go. And I don't like that part of me. So I do everything in my power to restrain me from going to that place. When I notice that people are tugging and pulling to bring that side out of me, I'll go ahead and disconnect. I may stop talking. And I have the gift of seeing people as if they're glass, as if they're not present. You know, I heard somebody say the other day, I was listening to a podcast, and she said the reason why I can leave relationships is because I have a gift of goodbye and I don't need closure. Oftentimes, people are remaining in toxic situations because they're looking for an apology, they're looking for some level of closure. I'm going to ask you the question that I ask my clients. If closure or an apology never comes, are you going to die? Are you going to stop living? Typically, they'll say, no, Marcia, that's extreme. No, that's just how extreme it is. If you're waiting for someone to acknowledge their inability to be accountable to you, if you're waiting for someone to hold themselves responsible for their actions with you and with themselves, and it never comes, are you going to stop living? That's how extreme it is that you have to confront toxic relationships, those trauma bonded relationships. Why are you connected? What is keeping you there? I often hear people say, man, I feel like I married my daddy, or man, I feel like I married my mama. And you probably did. One is because the personalities of your parents that you despise the most, that you are saying that you don't want to be like, that is where your focus is. That is your laser sharp on. I don't want to act like my mama. I don't want to act like my daddy. And guess what? You're putting more energy on what you don't want to act like than the energy of what you do want to act like. So what's going to come to pass? Energy attracts. So for every situation that you didn't want to be like your mom, you didn't want to be like your dad, you're attracting those people that are actually helping you to curate a life like your mother and your father. You don't want to change that? You don't want to do differently? You don't want to act differently from that? You don't have to. But then you have to sit back and ask yourself, why am I angry in this relationship? Why am I angry in a relationship with myself? Talking bad to myself, demeaning myself, all those type of things. Well, part of the reason why you're so mean to yourself is because you believed a lot of the narratives that you were told, that you are unlovable, that you're broken, that nobody's going to want to be around you, that you have no value, you have no purpose. All of those negative things, somewhere you began to believe what people told you. So you started mishandling yourself. You started mistreating yourself. I think about that in my relationship with food. I started abusing and mistreating food for my body as a source of comfort. I've told the story more times than not, that my relationship with food was after being molested and raped in my younger years. I thought putting on weight was going to keep people from being attracted to me. What I've learned, people are going to be attracted to you one way or the other, whether you're heavy, whether you're thin, whatever. Everybody has their own level and source of attraction. So in essence, I literally was taking on my violator's energy and hurting myself. It wasn't sexual hurt. It was hurt with food that would result in me having medical issues, multiple surgeries, just all kind of things. Once I recognized the root cause for my actions, I had to start making some changes. I first had to get inside and address me. What did I think about myself? I battled for years with not being chosen. And I know my esteem is pretty high now, but y'all, Back in the day, I was a mess, battling the idea of being chosen. I would get into relationships um, where they would end in a manner that was outside of my control, and those individuals go on and they would immediately get married to someone. So it set up this idea that I was only wanted for sex, which tapped right back into being sexually violated as a kid. Y'all see how this works? Y'all see how you can convince yourself of a narrative that will hold on to you for a long period of time, and it's not your truth. When I began to free myself from childhood molestation and rape, from from relationships that were only sexual, um, that really wasn't going anywhere, really didn't mean anything. When I began to free myself from that and recognize that my body is a temple, my mind is a vessel of a higher cause and a higher purpose, I changed how I even looked at myself. I no longer demeaned myself overweight. I no longer demeaned myself about relationships. I no longer lowered my standards. I remember years ago, someone that I had considered a good friend, but recognized that they were an associate, said to me, "Well, Marcia, if you just lower your standards, maybe you could get a man." And I laughed today the same way I laughed then. And I said, wow, coming from someone with a piece of a man, can't take you serious, darling. I just can't. And it was that old ideology, a piece of a man is better than no man. No, I'll take no man every time. I don't want a piece of nothing. Either you're going to come whole or you're going to be gone. It's real simple for me. I won't demean my presence and my essence and my wisdom, my knowledge, my ability, my vision, my purpose for a piece. For a piece? Come on, y'all. We got to do better than that. You're worth more than that. You're worth the change that you need to experience in your life. I'm seeing way too many couples miserably married, staying together because they want to save face. They want to save the idea, oh, I thought they was a perfect couple. Perfect means complete. Real simple. That person may have come into your life at a time that you were looking for levels of completion without understanding and knowledge. But there's been an evolution, there's been an evolving of situations that has caused you all to grow apart from one another. So you stand because you're stuck, you stand because you're afraid, you're staying because you hadn't found yourself worthy of peace. Which one is it? You have to decide that for yourself. I'm seeing people in relationship, whether married, shacked up, cohabitating, whatever it is, 20, 30 years and are miserable. And it's like, do you want to live the remainder of your years in misery? And if so, why? Why would you want to live like that? Why don't you want to live and exist in a state that does not require survival? Most of us accept toxic relationships for survival purposes. What do you mean? Oftentimes we tell ourselves, because we've seen it from our parents, our foreparents, our siblings, our aunts, uncles, all those relationships, that if we don't stay, we're going to be like this or be like that. Well, especially in the African American community, we have been living a survival state of existence since before we were created. It was just in our DNA and it was passed down. But you don't have to live in a survivalist mindset. You can actually live with your choices of succeeding. You can live with the desires of being loved. You can live in a state of jubilation and joy when you choose to do the work for you. So, listen, I know I've talked a lot about relationships and what other people bring to the table, but what I want you to walk away with today is understanding that you deserve the healing that you desire. You deserve the picture for your life that you desire. You deserve peace of mind. You deserve self acceptance. You deserve unconditional love directly from you. Now, if you attract someone that brings that to you as well, you deserve that too. You deserve that kind of love. But in the end, you have got to decide that you are a priority. I know as parents, you know my children are a priority. Baby, them children going to grow up and be gone. And they're going to be gone. And they're going to be worried about them. When you can show them the importance of you becoming a priority in your life, when you can show them the value in choosing you, you give them a better opportunity to be emotionally connected, emotionally intelligent. You give them the opportunity to have a voice on how they're feeling. You give them an opportunity to love and appreciate themselves. Don't be afraid to make yourself a priority. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not talking about making yourself a priority and going out and getting your hair done and nails done and all that kind of stuff. That stuff comes along with it. I am talking about the prioritization of self-worth and self-value. When you can give yourself that, you're already winning. When you can give that and demonstrate that and show that to your children then will win. When you can give that, show that, and adopt it into your lifestyle, your mate wins as well because your energy is going to put off, this is my healing, this is my value, this is my worth. And as you move in that space, you embrace the beauty of who you are. So I hope this series on toxic relationships and trauma bonds really help you to sit down and assess where you are in relationship with yourself and in relationship with others so that you can get on that journey of true love, healing, respect, boundaries, expectations, success. Because honestly, I want every relationship to succeed. I want you to succeed from a healthy space. So until the next episode of Authentically Peculiar with Marcia, take good care, stay focused, and always remain authentic.